All right, members, we'll move to questions to the Executive Office. Questions 1 and 11 have been withdrawn. I call Michelle McElveen. First Minister.
The Investment Summit was an opportunity for us to make clear that our economy is very much open for investment. It allowed us to be visible to a wide range of global investment stakeholders and also to engage directly with companies who might consider investing here, as well as those who already have a presence. We were able to hear the latest developments from the Government in terms of their plans to support investment and to remove barriers. It also gave us the opportunity to reinforce the message of why this is a great place in terms of a great investment option, and also to highlight the unique benefits of dual market access.
Ms McElveen.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. There was next to no media coverage of the First and Deputy First Ministers attending the International Investment Summit, or indeed the Council of Regions and Nations last week, both in London and in Edinburgh. Could I ask the First Minister why local media was not given access to these events, and was this related to the First Minister hiding from media scrutiny because of the safeguarding scandal within Sinn Féin?
Minister.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that you decided to take away from what was a great opportunity for us in terms of selling our wares and actually letting people know that we're very much open for business. It was an investment summit which we turned out and actually participated in. We had a great conversation on Friday in terms of the Council of Nations and Regions, and then back again on Monday to London for the investment conference, where we met numerous businesses that potentially want to invest here, so we could actually set out what our unique selling points are. It's not within our gift in terms of if local media don't turn up to take interviews in London, as was the case on Monday at the investment conference itself.
Paula Bradshaw.
First Minister, last week at Executive Office Committee we had some presentations in relation to the draft investment strategy. I wonder if you could lay out for the House the timescale for it to be signed off by yourself and the Deputy First Minister. Thank you.
Sir.
Yes, we're working our way through that, and we've had a previous submission that has been out to consultation, and we're going to come back. So I'm hoping that in the immediate period ahead, I can't give you an exact date, but we want to bring this forward because I think that it's important that our investment strategy very much aligns with the Programme for Government work. So as we finalise the Programme for Government, I think it's also appropriate that we have the investment plan alongside that, actually an enabling plan that allows us actually to get this work moving. So look forward to engaging with the committee in terms of the outworking of all of that work.
McGuigan.
First Minister for her response and for highlighting the North as a place for investment. Can I ask the First Minister maybe if she could give an indication of what future benefit she feels will be as a result here for us here in the North as a result of the investment summit?
Minister.
Thank you. I mean, the purpose of the summit itself was to engage with international trading partners and to demonstrate that we are very much open for business. And we are confident that the positive engagement we had with stakeholders at the conference and the very clear message of our ability to support innovation, high quality jobs will drive future investment. Some of this will naturally take time to deliver. Unfortunately, you don't go to these investment conferences and have one engagement and that quickly translates into an investment plan. However, it is an important work as part of building up those networks, those contacts, and actually making sure that we're doing everything we can to attract investment and that we're getting on with our local delivery here also. We obviously recently have had the Department of the Economy recently published the Economic Regional Plan, and a key element of that is the establishment of the local economic partnerships, which will really focus on the areas that are important to each of the different areas across the different council areas. We've got the new 12 million skills fund which has been established. We're working to improve careers advice. We really have a very good news story to tell, and we certainly took the opportunity to make that very clear to all of those potential investors, because we have a lot to be optimistic about whenever it comes to investment opportunities. And as I said, our story and our selling points of being a strategic location, having dual market access, a youthful and growing population, a highly skilled, cost-effective workforce, these were all the types of points that we were making to these potential investors, and I look forward to actually having even more of those connections in the time ahead, because we were able to follow up already on some of the opportunities that were identified at the investment conference, not least whenever it comes to Studio Ulster and the opportunities that we're going to have for that for next year in terms of the big announcement.
Diana Armstrong.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to ask the First Minister what additional plans the Executive Office have to promote Northern Ireland on the world stage and to help attract inward investment.
Sir.
Thank you.
So I think this conference gave us an opportunity in which to set out our stall. I've mentioned there just some of the selling points that we have. Our strategic location, dual market access is a unique selling point now which will attract investors, and I think that whenever you look at some of the stats in terms of our own economic performance, in the last year manufacturing exports to the EU grew by 14%. That's in comparison to what happened in England and Wales and Scotland, so we actually have made some good progress there. Sales to Britain have increased up by 17% in 2022. Cross-border trade has more than doubled over the last 5 years. So we need to do everything that we can to exploit our dual market access and make the case. So we will, as First and Deputy First Minister and executive colleagues and the Economy Minister across the board, will continue to replicate the message that we have, that we're open for business, that we have political stability, that we want you to come and invest here. And that will align with the work that's being done within the Minister of Economy's remit, but then also what the Deputy First Minister and I will do in terms of diplomacy, going out and making contact with these people and actually following through on the investment opportunities. But I think we have something to be very optimistic for in terms of growing the economy.
Stephen McLaughlin.
We are fully committed to protecting all children from harm and to ensuring the highest standards of safeguarding and child protection. All staff in our department must adhere to the next child protection policy and guidance, and established procedures are in place for reporting concerns and disclosures. We are also committed to continuing our important work with victims and survivors. Since February, we have engaged with the Commissioner for Survivors of Institutional Childhood Abuse, and will also be shortly meeting with victims and survivors groups to discuss the issues that matter to them. We met with those affected by mother and baby institutions, Magdalen laundries and workhouses before the launch of the public consultation, and we're also committed to direct ongoing engagement as this process continues. We have secured the Executive's endorsement of a new strategy for victims and survivors of the Troubles conflict and the new strategic framework for ending violence against women and girls. This framework was developed through co-design with the input of the community and voluntary sector, including the most valuable participation of women who have lived experience. And in support of this, the junior ministers visited grassroots women's organisations where they met with victims and survivors of violence. They've also met with victims and survivors of historical clerical child abuse and to discuss ongoing research and to attend an event to recognise the work of the Regional Trauma Network. Across all of these areas of work, we will continue to focus on delivering for some of the most vulnerable people in our society.
Ed McLaughlin.
First Minister, when were you first made aware of the reason for Senator Niall O'Donnell's suspension from your party?
Minister.
On the 13th of September, in line with our child protection guidelines and given that the complainant was under the age of 18, Niall O'Donnell was suspended from the party and the issue was referred to the PSNI and the social services in the North to investigate. At this point, I was made aware.
Emma Sheeran.
First Minister, thank you for your answers thus far. Following the further tragic news of yet more deaths of females in the North, and indeed I was on my feet earlier today in the Chamber to speak about that, can you outline your commitment to the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy that your department is leading?
First Minister.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I commend the member just for the statement that you made earlier. And of course, we all send our heartfelt condolences to the families of each and every one of those women who have lost their lives to violence against women and girls. 24 women murdered since 2020. These were daughters, mothers, sisters and friends, and these figures absolutely speak to an epidemic of violence against women and girls. So let me say again today that the message that we delivered when we launched our strategy, that words aren't enough. You know, now is past the time for talking, and that is why ending violence against women and girls has been a day one priority for both myself and the Deputy First Minister, and why it's a priority in the draft programme for government. Our 7-year strategic framework and our first delivery plan launched last month will work to end this scourge on society, but as the member will know, at the heart of that plan is the preventative work and the education piece that must be carried through, and this is going to take some time, but it is the beginning of what may well be a generational journey where the end point must be the building of society where women and girls live free from all forms of violence, abuse and harm, and together we must make this work happen.
Jonathan Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the interest of transparency for victims and survivors, just last week your party leader, Mary Lou McDonald, has faced calls to correct the record in the Dáil after she appears to have misled the House in relation to the age of the victim of Councillor Niall, or former Senator and former Sinn Féin Lord Mayor of Belfast, Niall O'Donoghue, who was a subject of inappropriate tax. So for the purpose of clarity, can the First Minister tell the House what age was the schoolboy involved?
Minister.
Can I just repeat again that all child protection protocols were followed with an immediate referral to the PSNI and also to social services. The protection of the young person was absolutely our primary concern. Niall O'Donoghue was held accountable and faced serious consequences for his totally unacceptable and totally inappropriate behaviour. And I'm deeply sorry and angry that this young person has had to endure any of this inappropriateness or this unacceptable behaviour. Also, I can confirm that according to our records, the young person was in fact 17. That's the records which we have in our files in terms of membership.
Connie Egan.
Minister, last week the Executive Office Committee issued an invitation for you to attend committee this week in regards to safeguarding and representation of victims and survivors. Will you be coming to committee this week?
Yes, I've said I'm very happy to engage the committee. I know the committee are seeking legal advice. I look forward to seeing that, but I'm happy to clarify the record in terms of the questions that were put to me.
Galston.
First Minister, the last time you came before the Executive Committee, you told us that you didn't see Michael McMonagle at an event in this building on the 14th of February, even though photographs emerged a few days later showing you were within feet of him. You told us you didn't engage with the British Heart Foundation on that day. Photographs later emerged a few days showing that you had conversations with Fergal McKinney. When I asked you a question in this place, you wouldn't answer. When asked when the next Sinn Féin paedophile scandal would hit the party, now we know why. Isn't it the truth that given the remit of your office, you have lost all credibility? Or does the fact that with all other unionists in this chamber seemingly having confidence in you to hold office means that you've calculated that, like so often before, you'll get away with it?
I'm always more than happy to answer questions that are genuinely about safeguarding because it's so important that we get this right. I have clarified my position in relation to engaging with Fergal McKinney and the British Heart Foundation. The member knows that only too well, so you're just standing on your feet to make a party political statement today as opposed to actually being genuine about trying to ask questions that are legitimate for me to answer, which I have, I think, endeavoured to try to do so in this House.
Keith Buchanan.
Please.
First Minister.
We attended the inaugural meeting of the Council of Nations and Regions in Edinburgh on Friday, the 11th of October 2024. The Council has been established to bring together governments and authorities with devolved responsibilities to determine actions for tackling some of the biggest and most cross-cutting challenges that we face. The meeting was chaired by the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Also attended were the First Ministers of Scotland and Wales and Mayor of London, the mayors of combined authorities and combined county authorities. This first meeting focused on economic growth and inward investment. The theme was chosen in light of the International Investment Summit, which was then held in London on the 14th of October, and which the Deputy First Minister and I also attended. The Council received an update on the Industrial Strategy Green Paper, Invest 2035, and we discussed opportunities for attracting long-term inward investment. Council members confirmed their commitment to working together to maximise investment and to support economic growth. It's envisaged that the Council will meet again in spring of next year.
Paul Keith Buchanan.
Thank you, and thank the First Minister so far for your answer. I welcome the First Minister and Deputy First Minister attendance at this event and their engagement with the Prime Minister in all UK regions. But would you commit to me on this House to make a full statement to the House on the back of this meeting and provide the benefits of the meeting to this region?
Minister.
Yes, so we're happy to report in terms, as I just have done, in terms of answering the question, but this does fall outside the normal structures of reporting to the Assembly Chamber, so we need to take advice in regards to that. But very happy to inform the House that we saw it as a good opportunity to engage, we saw it as a good opportunity to discuss investment, we saw it as a good opportunity to discuss shared challenges and also shared opportunities. So we look forward to building on the work that has now commenced with this new structure, but it is not a substitute for other formal structures of intergovernmental engagement, including, for example, the British Irish Council or the East-West Council structure that's also there as well.
Alicia McHugh.
Agus buas leis an aire fásta haine de Fragar Gujisha. Minister, did you have the opportunity to raise the city deals with the Prime Minister during the visit?
Minister.
Yes, the Deputy First Minister and I had the opportunity to meet privately with Keir Starmer whilst we were in Edinburgh in advance of the meeting with the First Ministers from Scotland and from Wales, and we raised the issue of funding for city deals. We absolutely underlined and stressed the importance of urgently securing the funding for those which are remaining paused, the Mid-South West and the Causeway Coast and Glens. The British Government's refusal to honour their commitment to both the Mid-South West deal and the Causeway region deal is inexcusable. So we really wanted to underline the importance of how, if Keir Starmer is on his feet speaking about economic growth, then that needs to be felt across the board, and we can't have a disparity in terms of these deals. These are economic generators. These are crucially going to drive investment and really increase jobs and investment in areas. So this was certainly one of the areas which we raised, and the need for it to be the pause to be lifted, and for them to get on with actually putting this funding back in place. We're hopeful to have some indication in that regard on at the end of the month with the Chancellor's statement, and hopefully that will shed some more light on the pathway for these deals being unpaused.
Philip Brett.
5, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, Junior Minister Riley will answer this question.
To date, £16.3 million has been invested in North Belfast and Urban Villages capital projects, 13 of which are now complete. 4 projects are currently being progressed in the area, including ABC Trust Health and Leisure Hub, which is on site now, and the redevelopment of Ballysillan playing fields, where construction is due to begin on site in November of this year. Westland Community Centre is currently being explored. Westland Community Group has invited us to meet with them to talk about the community centre, and we hope to take this offer up in the near future. More than £2 million has been invested through revenue projects to improve good relations outcomes in the North Belfast Urban Villages area. The impact the Urban Villages programme has had in the North Belfast community is significant. Successful delivery of the remaining capital projects will increase access to shared space facilities and continue to promote integration across the area and beyond. We recently set out the strategic direction for Urban Villages moving forward, which will include the completion of the remaining capital projects on the current plan.
Mr. Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Junior Minister for her comprehensive update, and agree with the Junior Minister that the impact that Urban Villages has had in North Belfast has been significant. Junior Minister, there are other parts of North Belfast that would hugely benefit from a future scheme. Can the Junior Minister update the House if the Office of the First and Deputy First Minister are scoping now the creation of a further programme for urban villages across Northern Ireland, so we can ensure all communities have the right to benefit from this important work?
Yes, well, just what I can say, and the member knows that Urban Villages wasn't by design. It wasn't supposed to be a long-term funder. But what we have to do is we have to learn. We have to learn from what has worked throughout the programme and how we can improve going forward. It has made a real impact in communities by improving good relations and support regeneration. I, alongside with Junior Minister Cameron, have visited numerous sites, met with organisations and witnessed the positive change that has been as a result of the programme, and work on the ground continues with those local communities playing a vital role in shaping and benefit from the projects being delivered, and I look forward to working with officials and the Department, of course, going forward in the development of our urban villages going forward.
Rick Largate.
And I thank the Junior Minister for her answer so far, and note the hugely positive work that has come out of urban villages, particularly in my own constituency in Derry. I appreciate the Minister's already answered this in part, but could you specifically outline the next steps for the project, and also what thought has been given to Urban Villages Phase 2?
Minister.
Yes, well, just by way of starting, since March, since coming into this position, I've had the great opportunity alongside other ministers to visit numerous sites throughout the entire north. We were in Derry, the Newgate Arts and Culture Centre in the Fountain area, Hosford Community Homes in East Belfast, and I just also want to commend the great work that's done by East Belfast Missions, the Community Garden and Family Shed, which is in South Belfast, and I know there's the project that is also going to be delivered in terms of the Lockhouse development. And just last week I attended another great event in the City Hall, which brought children together in terms of schools, which was a Buddy Up initiative celebration, and what that really showed is community good relations, not just benefiting for the schools, the teachers, but also for the kids themselves and the parents. But as you have already heard, the programme has clearly delivered a tangible benefit across participating communities. Successful delivery of the remaining capital projects will increase access to shared space facilities and continue to promote integration across the 5 urban villages areas and beyond. We've set out a strategic direction for urban villages in the time ahead, and that will include completing the current urban villages plan with a focus on delivering the remaining capital portfolio projects, investing in securing the sustainability of capital projects, and working on capacity building to support community organisations taking forward large capital projects, and planning for the future by establishing a working group to take forward the development of Phase 2. Ministers are currently reviewing the areas where urban villages Phase 2 can have the most impact in future, including more rural areas, and we will keep members informed as this process progresses.
Mark Durgan.
Mr Speaker, agus Prehas Leis an Ira Fahanya Afragri Gaji Shaw. Is it and has it always been an imperative that all urban villages projects, work that they do and fund, improve good relations outcomes and promote integration?
Minister.
Well, I think just in terms of, I've outlined just in terms of the clear good work that the urban villages has done throughout the entire north, and it has had a wide reach and it has been impactful, and that's ranging from people of all ages. But what I will say is that we are focused on investment in securing the sustainability of remaining capital projects going forward, and as I said, we will keep members up to date as we go forward with that.
Orlea Flynn.
Please.
Minister.
Again, Junior Minister Riley will take this question.
One of our key priorities, building a society where racial equality and diversity is supported, valued and respected, is a key priority for us, and work is continuing to deliver the commitments in the current racial equality strategy. Beyond 2025, it's important there is a clear mechanism and overarching framework for achieving racial equality and eradicating racism in our society. On the 11th of September 2024, a workshop took place that I attended with the Racial Equality Subgroup and the Travellers in Roma thematic groups. The purpose was to gather initial thoughts on the way forward. Feedback from this workshop, along with the input from key stakeholders, including the wider minority ethnic sector, will inform any future strategic approach. We all want to see the ending of racism and making this a fair and inclusive society where everyone is made to feel welcome and safe.
Ms Flynn.
Thank you, and I thank the Junior Minister for her response. If she could maybe provide us with an update on the Minority Ethnic Development Fund. Thank you.
Minister.
Yes, well, the Minority Ethnic Development Fund continues to be a key element of policy for racial equality and good race relations. It's intended to be aligned with and support our Racial Equality Strategy 2015 to 2025, and it is a vehicle to deliver aspects of the vision and shared aims. In line with the review of the fund, a 3-year funding scheme is currently in place from April 22 to March 25, helping to provide successful groups with greater stability and enabling longer-term planning and support. There are 31 successful applications currently being supported through this fund, which is worth approximately $1.1 million per annum. We recognise the value the sector placed on the fund and how it can support organisations to provide critical services to minority ethnic communities here. Subject to budget, we will extend the fund for current recipients by 1 year during 25-26 to align with the new strategic approach, and officials are currently working through the procedures in order to implement this.
Sean Mulholland.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Junior Minister. I was just wondering if you could give us an update of when the Race Relations Order will be updated.
Yes, well, a consultation on a racial equality bill started in March 23 and formally closed in June 23. A report on the responses and feedback from the consultation was published in August 24. And we do aim to bring updated race relations legislation before the Assembly through the legislative programme in 25-26 session. The report considers over 50 amendments, and it will inform the basis for any legislative changes, and it will move us a step closer to providing the best possible legal protection against racism and towards a more equal society.
Colin McGrath.
Would the Minister agree that a standalone hate crime bill would actually assist the racial equality strategy?
Sure.
Well, all forms of violence, hate and discrimination has to be tackled head on and called out. There's absolutely no place for racism in our society. What we do need to do is we need to support inclusion. We must challenge and confront any form of prejudice and ensure values of respect and equality for all. Our collective goal is to build a society where every individual, regardless of their background or identity, can live free from fear, hate and intolerance. And we all should be working actively and together to make sure our communities are safe and are absolutely welcoming for everyone.
Nadal.
Case number, case ever shot.
The public consultation on the proposals for a public inquiry and redress scheme closed on the 19th of September. We would like to thank all those who responded and attended one of the 16 public events. In total, 269 responses were received, and we are committed to publishing an analysis of these in the coming weeks. Whilst we need time to consider the responses in full, there are many areas of broad agreement where positive amendments can be made. However, there does remain many sensitive policy issues which will require discussion with executive colleagues before any final decision can be taken. It will also be important for us to engage and to listen with victims and survivors in this period. We aim to do the majority of this work before the end of 2024. Once the draft bill is agreed by the Executive, it will then be introduced into the Assembly for it to be fully considered. In parallel, we are also continuing to establish the practical requirements for the Inquiry and Redress Service. We remain committed, along with the many members of this House, to help people and their loved ones to get the answers and the support that they deserve.
Still.
I'm going to thank the Minister for her answers. Minister, would you be able to give us a rough guide of a timeline? Because obviously, as we know, many of these women who were girls, many of them at that time are an ageing population now.
Yeah, I accept that we want to move it on as quickly as possible. I think just given the enormity of the policy decisions and I suppose the emotive nature of them, we need to work our way through that as quickly as possible. We will continue to engage with victims and survivors throughout this. I think that's also very, very important, but we want to be able to, as we said, to get to the juncture by the end of the year where we actually have considered in full and discussed with executive colleagues the policy positions that we may take or may make, and then we'll come back to this House, obviously, for scrutiny and for conversation with members.
Matthew O'Toole.
Speaker, First Minister, given this and other victim, survivors and abuse-related issues sit within the Executive Office, it underlines the importance of your credibility in relation to safeguarding and related matters. So further to Connie Egan's question earlier on, can I be clear that you are going to appear before the Executive Office Committee this Wednesday? Just to be absolutely clear on that point. Thank you.
Yeah, I intend to go before the committee, but it's a matter of time and I need to work that out with the committee. They've invited me to come back this Wednesday, but I also am acutely aware that they've asked for legal advice, so let's get that. But I'm more than happy to answer questions to the committee.
First Minister rightly said institutional abuse was a source of shame, and the inquiry focused on the need for truth, and she mentioned there about the fact of listening to victims and survivors. It's also a source of shame that last week in this House the First Minister refused to say that she believed Maria Cahill. So will she answer the question this week rather than dodge it? Does she believe Maria Cahill when it comes to abuse she endured?
I believe I was asked this question in the committee and my answer was yes. It's no stepping away from that. I've answered this question before. I'm happy to do so again for yourself.
John Blair.
Question number 8.
First Minister.
So establishing a Climate Commissioner here is a key requirement of the Climate Change Act 2022, which falls to this department. When established, it will be an important element of our support to transition to net zero. Prior to February 2024, officials took forward significant development on the work on the options for the Commissioner, including how they would complement existing advisory bodies, and began drafting the required regulations. Over recent weeks, the Deputy First Minister and I have agreed that the necessary procedures should now be undertaken to have these regulations laid and made in this Assembly as soon as possible. This will be an important first step in establishing the Commissioner. Our officials are now undertaking the work required to have the regulations laid and made. The Committee for the Executive Office will also consider them in due course. The appointment of the Climate Commissioner will follow once the Assembly procedures are completed and the regulations are in place. Although there is no date stated in the Act as to when a Climate Commissioner should be appointed, once the regulations have been approved, we will move as quickly as possible to see that that appointment is swiftly made.
Mr Blair, a few seconds.
Thank you. Can the First Minister give us any indication of why it's taken so long to appoint commissioners on a range of issues, from climate to victims to languages, given these were supposed to be done within 100 days of restoration?
First Minister.
I think perhaps there's a bit of confusion in terms of what was presented by officials in terms of the first 100 days and what they presented, but that wasn't actually a work programme set out by myself and the Deputy First Minister. Suffice to say, when the legislation was brought forward, the ministers weren't in place, so a lot of work was happening in the absence of ministers. It's important that we get this right, and that's why we have revised the timeline in terms of in terms of laying the regulations, but also the fact that it's complex and we need to make sure that we get it right. So we, as I said, as part of the environmental improvement plan, we also restated our commitment to bringing this forward.
Time's up.
So we're moving at pace, hopefully by the end of the year.
Topical questions, and call Justin McNulty.
Concordia. First Minister, there is public concern around your party's lack of openness and transparency when explaining the recent departure of senior figures within Sinn Féin. What reassurance can you give to the public, including survivors of abuse who have been triggered and re-traumatised by recent events, that you will be conducting a thorough review of Sinn Féin's safeguarding, whistleblower and child protection processes?
First Minister.
Yeah, as I said, whenever I answered in this House, I mean, I want to be open and transparent and to answer the questions that are posed to me, and I've endeavoured to do so. And I think it's important that I repeat my assurances that safeguarding is of the utmost importance to me, and I've said that in the Chamber over the last number of weeks, both as a mother, as a grandparent and as a Minister of Government, and I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that we uphold the best possible standards that we can. I've set out what we will do internally in terms of, on a personal responsibility, in terms of our party. I said that very clearly. We're going to overhaul our own systems and structures, but I also would commend the public to judge me in terms of the actions which I take as First Minister in fulfilling all of my responsibilities in support of victims and survivors.
Mr McNulty.
Recognise that your credibility as Northern Leader of Sinn Féin overlaps with your credibility as First Minister for all. To help restore trust in your ability to hold the highest office in this Assembly, and in keeping with the Nolan principles, would you consent to a Senior Council scoping exercise with a view to assessing the need for an independent inquiry on how Sinn Féin as a party has dealt with complaints of abuse by those in positions of power and trust?
First Minister.
Concordia, there are mechanisms in place. This is one of them in which you can ask questions of me, and I think that I am being as open and transparent as I possibly can be. And we've asked and answered questions that have been posed by members both here and in the Assembly Committee, and likewise in the Dáil. But I would just take the opportunity to make a plea to all political parties that we are all part of society. Everybody needs to do their due diligence. Everybody needs to be very sure-footed in terms of their child protection policies. I will bring that approach to our party. I'm confident that we followed the child protection policies as we needed to, but I would encourage that across the board. Let's all question ourselves. Is everybody fit for purpose? Because if we're all serious about safeguarding, then that's the remit that falls to each and every single one of us.
Declan McAleer.
And the Minister will be aware, being from a largely rural constituency, of the importance of the basic payment scheme. The Minister appreciates that, and she'll also understand that there's no certainty beyond next year. So this is under control of the British Government. Does the Minister appreciate that any cut to the basic payment scheme could have a detrimental impact on our agriculture community, particularly small farms?
Minister.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I thank the member for his question and for being very vocal on this issue, as I know other members of the House are also. I mean, farmers were told that they would be replaced pound for pound, and here we are sitting and they're still not sure where they stand. And the cutting of this farm, and particularly for our small family farms, will have a real negative impact in terms of our local farmers and our local agri-economy. So since Brexit, our agricultural community as a whole has faced significant uncertainty, first with the loss of the EU's cap single farm payments, but now with the cutting of the basic payment scheme. And this scheme is a lifeline for farmers, and it must be protected, and I can assure the member that we have raised this at British Government level and will continue to do so.
Mr McAleer.
Thank the Minister for her response, and she has partially answered my second question. Will the Minister and indeed the Executive recommit to continue to press the British Government for fair funding for the Executive and for them to put in place guaranteed long-term funding for our farming community?
Yeah, since the Executive was restored, as I said, I and other ministers of the Executive have certainly used every opportunity to urge the British Government to fairly fund the Executive as a whole here, so that we can in turn support our local economy and our local public services. But we know that we've been dealing with prior to the election, we know 14 years of cuts and chaos under the Tories has put immense pressure. Combine that with Brexit, it's put immense pressure on farmers and rural communities, and without that investment, the very survival of our rural economies and livelihoods will certainly be at risk. This payment to farmers is in the direct control of the British Government, and we will continue, as I said, to make every opportunity to press for fair farming and to ensure that it is put in place immediately. It actually, as a matter of fact, is something that we raised with Keir Starmer when we met him on Friday of last week.
Philip Brett.
Another week, another safeguarding scandal, and yet another attempt to provide the public with half-truths. Your party president claimed the schoolboy subject to inappropriate contact was 17. He was not. Your party tried to claim that he was happy with how your party handled this incident. He was not. The First Minister has confirmed for the first time that she became aware in September of Mr O'Donoghue's actions. Why, First Minister, did you allow him to stay in office for another 3 months despite knowing his actions?
Minister.
I mean, there's a danger of just repeating and repeating. We have answered this question very clearly. All child protection protocols were followed. All child protection protocols were followed with the immediate referral to the PSNI and the social services. The protection of the young person was our primary concern and always would be. He was held accountable and he faced serious consequences, and rightly so, for his inappropriate and unacceptable behaviour. And as I said earlier, I'm deeply sorry that young person went through the experience that they did. It is totally unacceptable by anybody's standards. And I'm also, as we said in relation at the weekend, in terms of the young fella himself, Mary Lou McDonald clearly stated on the public record that any commentary that she made was never designed to cause any additional distress to the young person, and that remains our position. It's so important that people don't play games with people's lives here. This is so delicate in terms of the young individual himself. So I think that it's important that I'm open and transparent, as we have endeavoured to be so. But I think that it's important that people please don't play games with people's lives whenever you're coming to talk about this subject.
Mr Brett.
First Minister, I'm going to try that again because transparency is very important. So I'm going to ask you again, why did you, as Deputy Leader of Sinn Féin and First Minister designate, allow Niall O'Donoghue to remain as one of the most senior members of Sinn Féin, leader of your party in the Seanad, in office for 3 months, 3 months, First Minister, despite you knowing that he had inappropriately contacted a schoolboy?
Again, we're on public record of having said that the party received the legal advice that naming the individual would not have been appropriate given that there was no criminal charges brought against him. However, we also did say it very clearly that he was dealing with a severe mental health crisis and deemed to be medically unfit by his doctor. So therefore, there were concerns about the individual's mental health. And I think, again, we have said that very clearly on a number of occasions now.
Colin Crawford.
Speaker, can I ask the First Minister if she could update the House on any strategies or legislation that are currently not progressing through the Executive Office due to any ongoing disagreements between the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister?
First Minister.
Well, I can assure you, the member, that there will be plenty of disagreements between myself and the Deputy First Minister. That's the cut and thrust of politics. There may be different policy emphasis at different times, but we're working our way through those issues. There are times whenever we'd have differences of approach, but that's the nature of the jointry of the office, that we try to find a way to work our way through that. So I believe that we have, where we've come up against any difficulties, we've been able to manage our way through those. I've no doubt that we will have many a challenge in the time ahead, but we'll continue to work our way through it.
Mr Crawford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the First Minister for her answer. Can I ask, what assurances can the First Minister give us as members and also the general public that the Executive Office will provide a strong strategic agenda between now and the end of this mandate?
Minister.
I think that we've already demonstrated that that's what we're absolutely committed to doing. Whenever you look at what we've been able to bring forward, our draft programme for government's out for consultation. We've had the first year legislative programme, we've made advances in childcare, we've made advances across a whole raft of areas which I think we can all collectively be proud that we're making progress on. But of course there's a large volume of work to get through, but it's important that we get the right strategies and policies in place. It's important that we demonstrate to the public the value of local institutions delivering for them, and I have no doubt that that's the resolve of both myself and the Deputy First Minister in the Executive Office, and we'll always come here to this House and talk to members about all the different areas that we cover.
Hi, Harvey.
And thank you, Mr Speaker. The First Minister will be aware of plans to charge VAT on private schools and how this will inadvertently affect small independent schools across Northern Ireland, such as Harmony, for example, in Ballynahinch. Will the Minister support the Education Minister's stance on this and write to the Labour Government and seek to ensure that low-income families who see benefit in faith-based education do not fall foul to this tax policy in Northern Ireland?
First Minister.
Well, this is very much just something, a policy responsibility that's under the Department of Education, so that he'd be best placed in which to answer that question. It's not something that I believe that he has asked for support on, but I would have to double check that to be sure. But obviously a policy responsibility in this regard would fall very much to the Education Minister.
Mr Harbert.
And thank you for your response, First Minister. Just will you commit to engaging with Treasury for Northern Ireland's exemption from this policy if it is suitable? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I would have to be contacted by the Education Minister in which for him to raise any particular concerns that he has, and then we can see where it goes from there. But having not been over the policy remit or responsibility, I couldn't comment in more detail.
Mr McHugh.
Agus buíochas leis an éireann fásta faithine do Freagar Gají seo. Minister, could you outline your plans for the delivery of the next phase of the North West Development Fund?
Minister.
Yes, so we are working our way through that. It comes to an end in the early part of next year, so we're very keen that we can get to the juncture where we work with the Irish Government, because obviously they're a major funder, but we want to build on the good progress that has been made to this point, and there's no doubt that I don't think anybody can dispute that the North West Development Fund has been very effective, but I think that there's a lot of scope for us to build on that for going forward. But again, we need to, and we are communicating with the Irish Government in regard to what it looks like in terms of its next iteration.
Mr McHugh.
Minister, I'm sure you also would agree with me that addressing the regional imbalance is key to a thriving, progressive economy here in the north of Ireland.
Minister.
Yes, and when I talked earlier about growing our economy and the benefits and our selling points, I think that the fact that we are very much focused on regional balance and ensuring that we have a fair economy is a very strong point to make, and I very much welcome the fact that the Economy Minister has brought forward his proposals in terms of what is essentially a game changer to ensure that there is regional balance across the way. Everybody must enjoy the prosperity that we create. And I think that we can do a lot more in this regard, but I do think that the legislation that's been brought forward and developments recently of, for example, the A5 project going ahead, all speaks to regional balance and all speaks to an improved picture and ensuring that there is a fairness across the board. And I can assure that the member that regional balance, creating more jobs, ensuring that everybody gets their share in that, I think is an absolutely laudable policy choice, and one that which I know that we will continue to pursue.
Durgan.
We heard from the Junior Minister earlier that urban village projects aim to improve good relations outcomes and promote integration. Worthy aims that I'm sure we all support. Does the First Minister believe that the so-called Peacemakers Museum in Derry does both or either?
Well, of course. I mean, I think that we can, as the Junior Minister talked about, there is so many excellent projects out there that really do improve community relations. No doubt the museum also plays its part in all of that. I think that goes without saying.
Thank the First Minister for her answer, having previously told this Assembly that the museum had nothing to do with TEO, despite TEO spending the money to build it. I didn't, however, notice in the photographs of the official opening any representative from TEO. Can I ask if ministers were invited and why none out of 4 could attend?
First Minister.
I'm not aware if we were invited. I look at every invitation favourably, as the member will know that I spend my days and evenings and weekends out and about engaging with excellent projects. I don't know if we were invited. I don't remember declining an invitation to attend, and I think we just need to be clear in terms of what I said previously in terms of what we fund and what we don't fund, and I was making a distinction at that time, as the member is acutely aware.
Speaker, when Senator O'Donoghue resigned as a senator, the Sinn Féin leadership knew the reasons why. So why, can the First Minister please explain, what on earth possessed her party to release a glowing tribute talking about him serving diligently to the public, and how does that match a victim-centred approach?
First Minister.
Well, I don't agree with the assertion of a glowing regard. It was a statement of his role that he held, and I think that it was a statement of the role that he held and the different positions that he served in. And I also wished him well in terms of his health.
Very quickly, Mr Buckley.
So does the First Minister not believe Does she stand over that statement should have been released in the manner in which it was?
I think I've tried to answer this, Mr Speaker, in terms of the individual's mental health and the sensitivities around that, so I think I've tried to answer the question for you.
Concludes questions to the First Minister. We now move on to questions